you know who I am, and I'm not a professional cuddler, but I am a professional giver of touch, and I have been offering touch since 2004 professionally. Um, and before that, as a sexual surrogate, offering a different type of touch in the 90s. I started that in 1997. And there has been so much growth and evolution for me as a person. But there's a period where I didn't want to be hugged or cuddled at all. Like that was not my jam. I was not very into it. And I don't know, I've sat with it and like trying to figure out where was the point. Because there's a point where I loved cuddling. And there's a point where there was a transition I went through where I endured cuddling. So some harm had been done, and I continued to allow myself to be cuddled because that was what was expected of me. And then there was a point where I said, I don't want cuddles. And I drew a very clear line in the sand. I drew a wall instead of a boundary because I didn't understand where harm had been experienced for me, and what that looked like. And so that and even though I was offering touch, to me, I also then was pouring out into people and not being poured back into, which is wildly unhealthy. But I just didn't see that as a way that I wanted to be poured back into. So I had to find other ways. A couple of things that stand out for me in this process of becoming cuddly is one, I went to a cuddle party. That's what it was called. It was called the Naked Cuddle Party. And I went because they said naked. I ain't gonna lie. You had me at naked. So I showed up. But I also, the other reason why I went is at the time, a little wild story time for everybody, is at the time, my girlfriend was, had mushrooms. She grew mushrooms, and that was what she did, in addition to her full-time gig. And so we had a lot of people that would come by, and this was in Oakland. And so a lot of the people that would come by were coming from across the bay, and they were, we had some folks that were coming in regularly that were psychologists, and that had a community that they were having these events at. And so one day I was sitting there, my girlfriend hadn't gotten back from work yet. And so I was sitting there with one of the psychologists, and we had a conversation, and I learned about the naked cuddle parties that they were throwing. And I was intrigued. Now, mind you, when my girlfriend came in, and I'm like, I want to come to this party. And she looked at me, and I'll never forget, she looked at me and she said, "You hate cuddling." So I know, but I like drugs. And so these parties were they were under the, you would consume mushrooms for them. And the other things too, LSD, all these things that not all at once, but everyone was on the same trip at a different party, and these parties were regularly. So I said, yeah, well, I want to see what it's like. Maybe I like it on mushrooms. I don't know. And I went and I did. I loved it. And I took a very high dose. I think the first trip was actually LSD. The first cuddle party was actually LSD. I took a very high dose of LSD. And it was my first time consuming LSD. And in that process of being really in a space that was outside of myself, but already established a container of safety. We had a lot of ritual around it. I really realized, like, I do like cuddling. I love this feeling. There's something else though that I need to work on. There's some shadow work in here. And so facing that, those parties don't happen anymore. But that was really, really a powerful shift for me. And when I started actually being cuddly, and I was having a conversation about touching, in my work, teaching conscious erotic touch and touching bodies that we're not attracted to. And then that was yesterday in class. And then I had another conversation with Mackenzie this morning about that, this being weird, like about the reality is that some people will see cuddling and hear about professional cuddling and be like, that's fucking weird. Like, it's weird that you, like, and so she asked me, she said, at what point did it not feel weird to you? And it really drew up a memory of mine. When I was 18, let me tell you, first of all, I am not Jamaican, but they are in my family. And so there's a saying, you have more jobs than Jamaican. That's me. I've always had a few gigs at a time. It's just the way I've always rolled. It would, not anymore. I'm not there anymore. But when I was younger, that was how it was. And I've addressed that trauma. But I took a job on as caretaker. And I was working for an organization that would send you out to be caretakers for people who needed care, which is why it was so interesting when Shayla was talking about the companion piece, because she wasn't privy to this conversation earlier. But one of my clients was a paraplegic who had injured himself in a skydiving accident. Before then was very active. And one of the things that he needed help with was simply rolling a joint. Like, he wanted to smoke weed, but he lost dexterity. And so he had to screen. And I think he's, here I come in like hot 18, fine, perky, body right, everything. And he was like, yep, this one's perfect. So he had to think about it. You can't just have anybody, because they're going to tell. We were like in the suburbs of Chicago, and some of the community, wrong person turning you in, buddy. So he felt safe with me. And I learned a lot in that space, watching someone who didn't have access to touch at all. And I remember playing in his hair and talking to him and just being flirty and sensual, but not sexual. It wasn't a sexual relationship. But I was there genuinely as his caretaker for a couple of hours a day, a few days a week. But we became really close friends. And nothing was different, right? Like how I am with any friend. It was a professional friendship. And that basically is what happened. And so when Mackenzie and I were talking about it, I said, I don't think I've ever sensed that it was weird, because I've always known that someone needs touch. Like there's those people that need touch that can't access it. And that is a very extreme version. Everybody's not surviving skydiving accidents and needing touch. Some people are just surviving everyday trauma and in deep need of touch, and don't know how to negotiate it safely in ways that don't involve sex, and may not be interested at all in sex at the moment or at all in that experience. And also, like Mackenzie said, we have a very violent relationship with touch in America. Like it's just viewed as so obscene, and something that's so necessary for us to be viewed as obscene is so problematic to me. So that's where I come in. And in these conversations, one of the things, the one person is missing, and that's Tasani, and she may be jumping in soon, as she is on a plane going to Mexico. So she might jump in to help have a conversation about this, sharing hers, but her bio is on the website as well. And that's at atltantra.com/CuddleSage. So CuddleSage, all one word. And so, yeah, so that's how we kind of came together. I decided to pull us all together and to write this curriculum, to create something. And one of the other reasons I am an erotic disruptor. It's what I do, right? So right now, in the world, there are these sensual spaces, these erotic spaces that exist, and we are not in them as Black people, primarily as people of color also. You see these spaces, and it doesn't matter where they are. They're in Mexico, there's usually a commune of white folks. If they're in Bali, same thing, it's a commune of white folks. So it's like you can go to these brown ass places and still not see brown people represented in Tantra, in sensuality, in cuddling, in everything. And then you look at the image, like even if you just Google, go and try it right now if you want to, Google cuddling and see whose faces show up. It's as if we're just monsters that don't cuddle, that don't enjoy touch. And touch starts to feel weird because that's how it's programmed. That's how it's being pitched to us. And we need touch. We deserve touch. There's science in that. And and I've been talking so much, I forgot about the videos. We were supposed to start with videos, weren't we, Mackenzie? See, we had all that friggin' drama. Okay, cool. So there's science behind it. Also, we'll get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're teaching and how that looks, and invite questions. Again, questions for those of you that are listening in, you can feel free to slide into the DMs with some questions. And for those of you that are here in the space, you can just throw them in the chat and I'll see them. Or you can also raise your hand and ask your question aloud. And I love that too, because I don't want to be the only one talking. that's that on that. Mackenzie, can you throw, I don't have, oh, wait, hold on. I do have it. Okay, so I'm gonna share a video. This is a short video that I was supposed to start off with.